So if you've ever played around with Gradio, you've definitely used its interface class, right? It's amazing for whipping up a quick machine learning demo. But what happens when your ideas get, well, bigger? What happens when you need more than what interface can offer? That's where the real magic begins. Let's dive in and see how you can go from that simple demo to a truly powerful custom application using gradio.Blocks.
Okay, so let's break it down. At its heart, Gradio gives you two main ways to build. You've got interface on one side, that's the high-level API. Super fast, super simple, perfect for getting a demo out the door in minutes. And then you have blocks, the low-level API. This is your toolkit for power and flexibility for building really complex apps. Think of it like a pre-made model kit versus a giant box of Lego bricks. You can build anything with the bricks.
All right, let's kick things off with what most of us know and, let's be honest, love, the interface class. It's famous for being incredibly easy to use and for a very good reason. We'll just quickly touch on why it's so great before we figure out where we might need something more.
Yeah, and this quote just hits the nail on the head. With interface, you literally just say, here are my inputs, here are my outputs, and here's the function that connects them. Gradio does all the heavy lifting of building the UI for you. It's ridiculously efficient for a proof of concept. But, and there's always a but, that simplicity comes at a price.
Because you know how it is, sooner or later, you hit a wall. You get this amazing idea for something more custom, more complex, and you suddenly realize that your vision just doesn't fit into that simple input-output box anymore. So let's talk about where those walls usually pop up.
And these probably sound super familiar, right? Like, have you ever wanted to just put your input fields side by side instead of one on top of the other? Or what about grouping a few different models into one single app, maybe with some tabs? Or here's a big one, creating a workflow where the output of one model feeds into a second model. And what about changing stuff on the fly, like making a button appear or disappear? Yeah, with interface, that stuff is really, really hard, if not impossible.
And that brings us to the solution for all those frustrations. It's called gradio.Blocks. It's designed to let you completely tear down those walls and give you total granular control over every piece of your app's layout and logic.
So what are blocks really? Well, they're a low-level API that lets you place every component exactly where you want it and define precisely how data flows between them. The name is perfect, honestly. You're given a set of building blocks and you get to be the architect. You can construct exactly the experience you have in your head.
Okay, so how do you actually use this thing? It sounds complicated, but really, getting started with blocks boils down to just 4 core ideas. Once you get these, a whole new universe of possibilities opens up.
So here's the game plan. First, you define your layout. You just create your components, text boxes, buttons, images, inside a with gradio.Blocks block. Second, you write your Python functions just like you always would. Third, and this is the most important part, you assign events. You tell Gradio, hey, when this button gets clicked, I want you to run this function, take the input from that text box, and stick the result in this other text box. And lastly, Gradio is smart enough to figure out the rest and make everything interactive for you.
Now, out of the box, it's super straightforward. When you start adding your blocks, they just stack up neatly on top of each other, one by one in a single column. It's a clean and simple starting point, but let's be real, it's not always what you're going for.
And this is how you break out of that default column. You want things to sit side by side? Easy, just wrap them in a grid.row. Need to create some specific vertical groupings? Use a grid.column. And if you're building something really big with different sections, you can use grid.tabs and grid.tabItem to organize everything into a clean, tabbed layout. You have complete control over where everything goes.
Okay, so arranging stuff is cool, but where Blocks really shines is in creating these dynamic, multi-step experiences where your app can react and change. This is where your application actually starts to feel alive.
So check this out, this is a perfect example. Imagine a user uploads an audio file, step 1. Then a speech-to-text model jumps in and transcribes it, step 2. Now that text gets displayed so the user can see it. But here's the cool part, it's also silently passed along as the input for a second model, maybe a sentiment analyzer. And finally, the app shows the final sentiment. This kind of chaining, where one component's output becomes another's input, is what Blocks makes incredibly easy.
So we've seen how to change the text in a box or the image in a gallery. That's changing the value. But what if you want to change the component itself? What if you want to make a text box read-only, or make a button disappear entirely after it's clicked?
The secret sauce for that is grab.Update. It's a game changer. So the key is, instead of your function just returning a string of text, you have it return grab.Update with new properties. You can literally say grab.Update visible equals false to hide something, or grab.Update choices equals new options to completely change what's in a dropdown. This is how you build UIs that feel truly dynamic and intelligent.
And just like that, you've leveled up. By moving from the high-level interface to the low-level blocks, you've gone from being someone who just uses a framework to being the architect of your own application. You're in the driver's seat. You control the layout, the flow of data, and how everything behaves.
So yeah, you're not limited to that simple input-output box anymore. All the building blocks you could need are right there waiting for you. The power is literally in your hands. So the only question left is, what amazing, complex, and dynamic ideas are you going to bring to life?